for Gage and others in the 1990s would prove an opportune time to dispel doubt thanks to emerging tools that allow them to stain, mark, and even count neurons in a way they never had before. We're on page 28. We're in chapter 2. We're in the section of neurogenesis, page 28.
Right.
And dispel the doubt they did, offering up proof in 1997 that mice living in enriched environments with social interaction toys and running wheels had dramatically more hippocampal neurons than mice who lived in bare cages.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, Gage's studies showed that new neurons had grown in the brains of both groups of mice, but in their enriched group, social interaction, toys, and running wheels seemed to help those fledgling neurons survive and mature. In that group, 90% of the new neurons thrived compared to a normal survival rate of just 50%.
Oh, boy. That's pretty good. Pretty damn good.
Pretty good, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
The results were fascinating. But the real clincher came when Gage and his team noted that Dorothea should be doing the bicycle. Good. But the real clincher came when Gage and his team of neurogenesis, for the first time the results were fascinating, but the real clincher came when Gage and his team noted neurogenesis.
Right.
For the first time in humans.
Oh, for the first time.
This is fantastic.
Uh-huh.
That study labeled and counted new neurons born in the adult brains of patients with terminal cancers who had agreed to donate their brains after they died. The human brain, Gage study proved, wasn't fixed in adulthood after all.
Oh, really?
The news was a breakthrough in the way we think about the brain,
We think about the brain.
crushing the myth that the brain only deteriorates with aging. Since then, Gage and researchers around the world have helped to fill in the blanks about neurogenesis in the adult human brain. We now know that new neurons are born in the brain every day. But unless certain conditions exist, one of those conditions is presence of the brain fertilizer BDNF, which you'll read about in a moment, they'll simply dissolve, never to grow into adult neurons. We know that neurogenesis happens throughout life, but occurs to a lesser degree as we reach old age. So we're having neurogenesis throughout life, Mom.
That's right.
But it's a little less as we get older, giving us ever more reason to build up brain reserve in midlife. We know that other factors such as sleep, yeah, like you're midlife now. You need to build your brain. We know that other factors such as sleep may alter neurogenesis in the brain. So we need to get you a good bed.
I need a good
A silly polypedric.
Something's been telling me to get it.
Silly polypedric.
Uh-huh.
Silly something pedic. Polypedic.
Okay.
Silly polypedic. Something like that. We also know that growth in the various areas of the cortex and hippocampus
Right.
translates to better brain performance, as you'll read in part 2 of this book. And perhaps, most exciting of all, with simple behavioral modifications, it's possible to see remarkable change in the size of these brain areas in mere months.
Right.
In fact, as recently as 2012, evidence has emerged that some changes in the brain occur more rapidly than we knew, becoming evident after a little as 2 hours, and to such a large degree that they can be seen on MRIs. Showing a chart here about this BDNF. It's a building more synapses,
That's right.
building more highways, the fiber bundle, and building more blood vessels, building more neurons. Brain growth can happen through lifestyle changes that we know to build synapses, bolstering the brain's highways, nourish the growth in blood vessels, and promote the development of new neurons.
Right.
So we're going to go into this next section. It's called Fueling Growth. Right now we're on page 29 of a book which is called Bolster Your Brain by Majid Fatuhi. Majid Fatuhi. MD, PhD, Bolster Your Brain.
That's Fatuhi, huh?
It's, I don't know how it's pronounced, but Fotuhi. Fatuhi.
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 Yes, Fatuhi.
Ah.
He wrote this book, and we're on page 29, and the book goes to page 2. Let's see what page it goes to. It goes to page 293, and there's another page in the back. And we're trying to read this book before we go to see Dr. Fatuhi next
That's right.
Friday. We're on a Friday today. We're scheduled to go next Friday to Baltimore to see Dr. Fatuhi.
Good.
So we're about 10% of the way through the book, and we've got about 7 more days.
That's right.
So let's get going. I might need your help in reading some of this.
Okay.
I can't read all the time.
Mhm.
Fueling growth. You've heard it a million times. Eat brain food, exercise, sleep well, and you'll be rewarded with a fit brain.
Right.
But what does that really mean? And what else can you do to enhance your brain's performance? As you'll discover, there is a wave of developing science behind a variety of techniques and practices that will put you on a path to grow your brain and boost its performance, both now and in the future. In the past, efforts to boost brain performance have focused on slowing brain aging by preventing inflammation or limiting the risk of brain-damaging events such as stroke. Those factors still matter when it comes to brain growth. Your brain won't grow if it is shrinking due to harmful effects.
Oh, wonderful.
But it's becoming increasingly clear that growing your brain really boils down to capitalizing on 3 mechanisms that are crucial to brain growth: oxygen, BDNF, and healthy brain wave activity.
Right.
These mechanisms fuel the core for aiding synapses, supporting the growing a network of blood vessels.
That's right.
So you need to have these synapses growing. You need
That's
to support the network of blood vessels,
Uh-huh.
bolstering the brain's highways, and promoting neurogenesis. You'll read about them throughout this book, but here is the short story. Going to the short story. Adding synapses. Adding synapses is where you learn something new. It builds them. Neurogenesis is caused by sounds like it was
Uh-huh.
it's some stimulation. So you're having this neurogenesis and synapses growing. Now we're into page 30. Oxygen. Unlike the cells in the rest of your body, neurons are constantly abuzz with activity, firing thousands of times a second, even when you're sleeping, a level of demand that requires tremendous oxygen flow. Oxygen keeps these neurons firing, and it is a crucial ingredient
That's right.
in synaptogenesis and neurogenesis. Optimal oxygen flow also aids in bolstering the brain's highways. Remember the myelin that covers the neuron's axon, allowing to pass messages more quickly? That layer of insulation is actually kept intact with the aid of helper cells, which nourish and protect it. And what do those helper cells need to survive? Oxygen. Starve the helper cells and the myelin they're supporting degrades. The end result is a breakdown of communication between one neuron and the next. In our cognicity example, you can imagine that happening along the communication highways, fiber bundles that connect one brain part with another. Limit oxygen flow to the brain, and you cause damage to both neighborhoods and highways.
That's right.
You'll learn soon enough about factors that help and hinder oxygen flow to the brain. They're the same types of things that keep us heart healthy. But for now, it's enough to know that optimal oxygenation is key to boosting your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So start pedaling the bike.
Doing it.
That's good for your brain.
Uh-huh.
Don't you want a super brain?
No.
Do you have a super brain?
Uh-uh.
Yeah, you do. Come on, pedal. Come on, put the pedal to the metal.
Okay. There you go.
There you go. See? You feel
Yeah.
better, don't you?
You happy?
Feel better now?
Uh-huh.
Okay. The next section is oxygen on page 30. I think we're going to stop here and start a new tape. I'm sorry, the next section is BDNF. I think we'll stop here and start a new tape.
Uh-huh. That's good.